Greenland, a massive landmass with a tiny economy. But why are global superpowers fighting over it? At first glance, this icy island seems like an isolated frozen wilderness home to just 57,000 people, most of whom rely on fishing and government support to survive. It's officially part of Denmark, yet it's thousands of miles away from Europe, sitting alone in the Arctic, seemingly untouched by the world's biggest economic battles. But here's the catch: Greenland isn't just some remote, empty piece of land. Beneath its icy surface lies something far more valuable than most people realize. Global superpowers aren't interested in Greenland for its tiny economy or sparse population. They're after something bigger: strategic control, untapped natural resources, and dominance over the Arctic's future trade routes. In the coming years, the fight for Greenland could escalate as countries like the United States, China, and even Russia try to gain influence over this crucial territory. So, why does Greenland hold such immense power on the global stage? And could it actually change the balance of power between the world's superpowers? Let's break down why Greenland matters and what the future holds for this strange and fascinating region. Greenland is the world's largest island, yet it has an economy so small that it barely registers on the global stage. With only 57,000 people, less than a mid sized town, it has one of the lowest population densities in the world. But what's even smaller than its population? Its economy. Greenland's GDP is just $3.3 billion. To put that into perspective, some zip codes in the United States generate more economic activity than the entire island. So, what drives this tiny economy? The answer is fishing. More than 90% of Greenland's exports come from seafood, particularly shrimp and halibut, but beyond that, economic activity is limited. The island lacks major industries, advanced infrastructure, and large-scale private investment. Most businesses are small and focused on local needs rather than global trade. Unlike Iceland, which has leveraged tourism, geothermal energy, and a strong financial sector to punch above its weight, Greenland remains heavily dependent on a single sector. But fishing alone isn't enough to sustain an economy of this size. That's where Denmark comes in. Every year, Denmark provides Greenland with nearly $600 million in subsidies. This funding supports everything from government salaries to roads, hospitals, and even Greenland's airline routes. In fact, nearly half of Greenland's workforce is employed in government jobs, meaning their paychecks come directly from Danish support. Without this financial backing, Greenland's economy wouldn't just struggle, it might not survive at all. Denmark's support isn't just about generosity, it's about maintaining control. By keeping Greenland financially dependent, Denmark ensures that the island remains part of its kingdom despite Greenland's push for greater autonomy. But this raises a critical question. If Greenland is so dependent on Denmark, why are global powers suddenly interested in this frozen island? The answer lies in something much bigger than just money. It's about Greenland's strategic location, its untapped resources, and its potential role in shaping the future of global power. And that's exactly what we'll explore next. Greenland may seem like an isolated, struggling economy, but beneath its icy surface lies an enormous amount of untapped potential. Three key factors make this island far more valuable than its tiny GDP suggests: its natural resources, its strategic military importance, and its role in the rapidly changing Arctic trade routes. Let's start with resources. Greenland is sitting on a treasure trove of valuable minerals, including rare earth metals, diamonds, and potentially vast reserves of oil and gas. Rare earth metals are especially important. They are used in everything from smartphones to electric vehicle batteries to advanced military technology. Right now, China dominates the rare earth market, producing over 70% of the world's supply. But Greenland's deposits could provide an alternative, reducing global dependence on China. This is why major powers, including the United States, are keeping a close eye on Greenland's mining potential. Then there is military strategy. Greenland's location makes it a crucial outpost in the Arctic, a region becoming increasingly important in global defense. The island sits between North America and Europe, making it a prime location for early missile detection and military operations. In fact, the US already has a significant military presence here, Hull Air Base. This Cold War era base is America's northernmost military installation and plays a key role in missile defense, space surveillance, and Arctic security. With rising tensions between global superpowers, Greenland's role in military strategy is only becoming more critical. Finally, there is the Arctic trade route factor. Climate change is melting ice in the Arctic at an alarming rate, but with it comes a major economic shift. New shipping lanes are opening up, allowing cargo ships to take a much shorter route between Asia, Europe, and North America. These Arctic routes could reduce global shipping times and costs dramatically, cutting weeks off traditional trade paths like the Suez and Panama Canals. If a country were to control Greenland, it would have a major say in who gets access to these lucrative new passages. This brings us to the United States and its growing interest in Greenland. The US has already attempted to buy Greenland twice. First, in 1946, when President Harry Truman offered Denmark $100 million for the island, and again in 2019 when President Donald Trump suggested purchasing it. Both times, Denmark refused, but the US didn't stop there. Instead, it has strengthened economic and military ties with Greenland, funding infrastructure projects and expanding diplomatic relations. Why? Because controlling Greenland would give the US a huge advantage over its biggest geopolitical rivals, China and Russia. China has already tried to invest in Greenland's mining industry and infrastructure, while Russia is expanding its military presence in the Arctic. The US wants to make sure it doesn't fall behind in this strategic region. Hull Air Base alone gives the US a significant edge, but full control over Greenland would mean complete dominance over Arctic security, trade, and resources. With superpowers circling like sharks, Greenland is no longer just an icy wasteland, it's a geopolitical goldmine. But the real question is, what does Greenland itself want? That's what we'll explore next. The idea of the United States buying Greenland might sound bizarre, but it's actually not a new concept. In fact, the US has tried to purchase Greenland before. Back in 1946, President Harry Truman offered Denmark $100 million for the island. More recently, in 2019, former President Donald Trump floated the idea again, saying it would be a great real estate deal. While his proposal was widely mocked, the truth is that the Greenland's strategic value makes it a highly desirable asset. Historically, the US has acquired land through purchases, one of the biggest examples being Alaska, which it bought from Russia in 1867 for just $7.2 million. At the time, people thought it was a waste of money, calling it Seward's folly. But today, Alaska is a crucial part of the US economy and defense strategy, so could something similar happen with Greenland? The reality is far more complicated. Unlike Alaska, which was owned by a single foreign power, Russia, and had a weak presence of indigenous communities, Greenland is an autonomous territory of Denmark. While it technically still falls under Danish rule, it has its own government, laws, and growing sense of national identity. Any attempt to purchase Greenland would first require it to gain full independence from Denmark, a process that is far from guaranteed. One of the biggest obstacles to Greenland becoming independent is money. Greenland relies heavily on Denmark for financial support, receiving around $600 million in annual subsidies. This accounts for nearly 20% of its entire economy. Without this funding, Greenland would struggle to maintain basic services like healthcare, education, and infrastructure. For full independence to be viable, Greenland would need a strong, self-sufficient economy, something it currently lacks. Even if Greenland were to gain independence, that doesn't mean it would automatically agree to US control. While the United States could offer economic incentives, Greenland's people might prefer to remain neutral or build relationships with multiple countries rather than align themselves with a single superpower. The cultural aspect is also crucial. Greenlanders have a unique identity and a strong connection to their Inuit heritage, which could make them resistant to being absorbed into another nation. There is also the question of international law and global reaction. In today's world, buying a country or territory is extremely rare. It would likely spark international backlash, especially from European nations and even China, which has growing economic interests in Greenland's resources. Denmark itself strongly opposes selling Greenland, making the process politically impossible unless Greenlanders themselves push for it. So while the US may dream of owning Greenland, the reality is that it's not as simple as writing a check. The island's future depends on what its people want, and for now, most Greenlanders seem more focused on autonomy rather than being absorbed by another nation. But if Greenland's economy grows and global superpowers continue their tug of war over the Arctic, could things change? That's the $1 million question, or in this case, the multi-billion-dollar one. Greenland stands at a crossroads with two very different futures ahead. One path is to remain under Danish rule, continuing to receive financial aid and gradually developing its economy. The other is full independence, a bold but highly challenging move that would require economic self-sufficiency. For now, staying with Denmark offers stability. The annual financial support of around $600 million keeps Greenland's economy running. This money funds essential services including healthcare, education, and infrastructure, all of which would be difficult to sustain without external assistance. Under Danish rule, Greenland also benefits from trade agreements and diplomatic protection. However, there is a growing push among Greenlanders for more autonomy. While full independence isn't immediately on the table, many want greater control over their resources and political decisions. The second path, independence, comes with major hurdles. Greenland's economy is simply too small to support a fully independent nation. Right now, fishing is the backbone of its economy, but relying on one industry is risky. If Greenland were to cut ties with Denmark, it would need alternative sources of income to survive. This is where its untapped natural resources come into play. Greenland is sitting on a gold mine of rare earth metals, diamonds, oil, and gas. If properly developed, these resources could generate massive revenue and provide the foundation for an independent economy. However, extracting them is easier said than done. The country lacks the infrastructure, workforce, and investment needed to kickstart large-scale mining operations. On top of that, environmental concerns and opposition from local communities make resource extraction a politically sensitive issue. Greenlanders want economic growth, but not at the expense of their environment and way of life. There is also the Arctic's increasing geopolitical significance. As ice continues to melt, new trade routes are opening, making Greenland's location more valuable than ever. The US, China, and Russia are all looking for ways to establish influence in the Arctic. While the US already has a Thule air base in Greenland, it wants to strengthen its presence to counter China and Russia. Meanwhile, China has been quietly trying to expand its influence through infrastructure investments and economic partnerships. This growing interest from global superpowers puts Greenland in a unique position. It can leverage its strategic importance to attract investment and partnerships, but it also risks becoming a pawn in a larger geopolitical game. So what happens next? Most likely, Greenland will continue on its current path, gradually gaining more autonomy while still relying on Denmark's financial support. Full independence is unlikely in the near future unless Greenland finds a way to sustain itself economically. However, the fight for influence over Greenland isn't going away anytime soon. While the US may not be able to buy Greenland outright, it will continue to strengthen its presence in the region. Meanwhile, China and Russia will look for opportunities to gain a foothold. Greenland's challenge is to navigate these competing interests while protecting its sovereignty and ensuring long-term economic growth. The world may see Greenland as a remote, frozen island, but beneath the ice lies untapped potential, and the global powers know it. The question is, will Greenland be able to take control of its own future, or will it remain at the center of a geopolitical tug-of-war? Greenland may be small, but its importance on the world stage is growing. With vast natural resources, a strategic Arctic location, and global superpowers competing for influence, its future remains uncertain. Will it stay with Denmark, push for independence, or become a key battleground in global politics? Only time will tell. If you enjoy deep dives into geopolitics and economics, make sure to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Do you think Greenland could ever become a US territory? And if you want to see how Japan's economy is outsmarting both the US and China, check out this video next. Thanks for watching, mate. Bye.